Okay, a little early this week because of Christmas. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Hopefully everyone's doing well. My man Stuckey, who I got a bad break because when we recorded last week, we thought Mike White was gonna battle through 7 broken ribs and a broken abdomen, but he was ruled out. And Zach Wilson, who I give you the benefit of the doubt, Stuckey, you never would have bet on Zach Wilson, even though they took a late lead in that game. But, Zach Wilson's always going to Zach Wilson. Clearly his teammates, especially his wide receivers, do not like him. And it feels like we're recording this on Wednesday. They're going to have to roll with Zach Wilson again. That sucks. I mean, Zach Wilson's going to be the reason the Jets do not make the playoffs, in my opinion. 32-21-1 on the season. You can find Stuckey, the Action Network podcast. Big bets on campus. College basketball's rolling right now. I saw Texas is 7 right now, and their coach is probably going to go to jail. So wild times in college hoops.
Yeah, the Jets game was annoying. I wouldn't have played it. I was shocked at the market. So there was, it was Jets. I had some +1 on the Jets, and then it went to -1.5. Went as soon as Zach Wilson gets announced, goes to +1.5, as it should. He's a downgrade from Mike White. And then the Jets took really sharp money late in the week, and they closed like -2.5, which I was shocked by. And I never would have played them. Some of the throws Wilson had in that game, just some of the inaccurate throws, an awful pick, one completion where he just basically threw it up in the air, and it was basically like a punt. Like
the Garrett Wilson shoved the guy out and made the play.
It was awful. And it's going to cost them a playoff spot. They could have still won that game, but he was probably the reason why they didn't win it. And that's sometimes those are the breaks that happen in the NFL. So we're on to this week.
To me, what's crazy about him is how terrible he is at just the most basic football stuff, right? Yep. Like a wheel route, just a basic slant route. He obviously, made some defenders miss. He's pretty athletic. He's got a big arm, but he is terrible. Like 3rd and 7, it's like, oh, this is going to be a punt before the play is even snapped. They got no shot.
Yeah, even the good plays that he did have, like he can buy time and he's mobile, but some of the deep throws he had, because he has some talented receivers, they were underthrown or just like chuck it up and a receiver makes a play. But in that offense, you have to complete short passes and you have to complete into the flats or slant. And he's just, as you said, is so bad at the littlest things, and it's maddening to watch. And be curious to see what the Jets do in the offseason and next season. Is it Mike White? Do they try and go get a young quarterback, another veteran? So because look, they're an up and coming team with a lot of talent on that roster, and all the other places, that's just the missing piece.
What's going to be Thursday night? I mean, if Trevor, it's going to be harder. I mean, the Jets defense is good, but obviously quarterbacks don't go against each other in a game, but when you do watch two teams play, like you kind of get the feel of the two quarterbacks, how they stack up against each other, and that gap. I mean, it could be eye-opening to the Jets fans. Like this could be it for Zach Wilson with the Jets after Thursday night, I think.
Yeah, and especially, this Jacksonville is one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. So if he's not, looking competent or at least semi-competent on Thursday, and a loss on Thursday is going to make it very tough for them to have any shot to make the playoffs. So prime time Thursday night playoff lives on the line, and he has a bad game that you might never see him again.
Okay, let's dive into some of the games this weekend. They control their own destiny. I guess they need Washington to lose a couple games, but the Packers feels like it doesn't feel. They do have some life. They're playing Miami, who's lost several straight games to obviously 3 teams that are going to go to the playoffs. This game's in Miami. Aaron's battling a little signal controversy with his guys crushing him, not knowing the signals. But A.J. Dillon obviously left that game on Monday night. As of right now, who knows? I mean, he's a big part of they've become a running team. But Dobbs and Watson are coming on. I think the Packers could make a run. It wouldn't shock me if they win the next 3 games and, get that 7 seed. But obviously this might turn out to be their toughest game. In Miami, depending on what happens, obviously with New England and definitely the Jets Thursday night, they got to start winning some games here, Stuckey. So this is a big game.
Yeah, the Packers, if they win this game, they're going to need some help, but it's not the craziest sequence of events that's required for them to make the postseason. And they have the Vikings and the Lions at home to finish out the year. The one interesting thing about this game is that it's in Miami, but just like everywhere this upcoming weekend, it's going to be cold and there's going to be wind. And I think that really favors the Packers. I think it's going to be a 20-mile-an-hour winds, it'll be like 38, 40 degrees. So it's not going to feel like a game that's in Miami. And yeah, Packers are getting healthier now. It's a team that I've talked about on the show all year. They've been pretty unlucky just on fourth downs in the red zone. They're able to move the ball consistently. Like their success rate's really high. They can run the ball. And you got Romeo Doubs back, which is why they cut Sammy Watkins. And so I think Bakhtiari should return this weekend. And they had some injuries on the defensive side of the ball, but they've kind of made some adjustments and are playing better on that end as well. And their weakness still is their run defense, but that's not, Miami's strength. And if you can make Miami a running team, I think that's really what you want to do. And the Packers have a great corner, Jair Alexander, great pass defense, and they really excel at defending over the middle of the field, which is what you want against this Mike McDaniel offense. So, yeah, I took the 4 points here. I think the Packers are trending in the right direction. Dolphins are trending the other way. I know they've played some good teams here, but they also, before then played 4 of the worst defenses in the NFL. So, I think that this is a bit too many points. Probably, to me, this going to be a field goal game either way.
Well, this game probably going to be ice cold. New England hosting Cincinnati. Cincinnati probably, you could argue the hottest team in the league, maybe beside Buffalo. Or San Francisco too. New England after that, you could argue one of the worst losses in the history of the sport. Not that they were gonna win the game in overtime. Right? It wasn't they were guaranteed to win, but when you lose like that, that's hard to shake. That they, this is must-win territory for them. Now they finish right Miami Jets, so that they still get the opportunity to play those two teams, depending on what happens to them, so they could, kind of claw their way back. I don't know, man. I guess I probably would have hammered Cincinnati in this game had New England won that game. You guess it's a kitchen sink game for New England. They have to win, but goddamn, they look freaking terrible on offense. And the Raiders defense is so terrible. It's like, I didn't think it was that impressive of a showing, especially for the majority. The first half, they were awful. And it took a Derek pick 6 for them to get back in the game. So it's not like Mac Jones threw 3 touchdowns. I'd have a hard time putting money on the Matt Patricia and Joe Judge led offense here with the New England Patriots.
Yeah, the coaching is a bit of a concern because Bill, some of the decisions he's making just from a game management standpoint, but most importantly, it's the play calling is just way off. And how do they recover from that kind of loss? It's an interesting question. The same thing with the Colts. Like, what are the Colts aren't playing for anything either, but when you blow a 33-0 lead and lose, and you're out of the playoff hunt, it's tough to, I think.
Well, you see Matty Ice got benched for Foles.
Yeah, and then like, who wants to come in on Monday and prepare for a meaningless game? And so the preparation is tough, and we'll see if they show up. But yeah, I took the 3.5 points here. I had Tampa last week too, catching 3.5 at home against Cincy. I would make that bet again. There was, if you look at Tampa outgained Cincy by 200 yards, averaged they held Cincinnati to 3.8 yards per play. And they they fumbled. They lost 4 fumbles. They had a fake punt in the second half with Gio Bernard that really turned the game around. But the Bengals, the Bengals were like 3.5 in Tampa last week. Now they're going on the road again. And now you're going to be dealing with lots of wind, freezing cold temperatures, which I obviously think benefits New England, who wants to be a running team. So I think the wind is really going to help New England here. But I still have the Patriots as a better team overall than the Buccaneers, who are just they cannot cover a spread to save them their lives. I think they're 1-11 against the spread. I still have them slightly better. And since he was -1, he closed as a 1-point favorite in Tennessee. I have New England better than Tennessee. They closed as a 3. Actually, I think they closed at 3. There was late money that came in on the Bucks, and now they're a 3.5-point favorite just because they've covered so much. They're 11-1 against the spread in their last 12. They're 18-4 against the spread, including the postseason over their past 22 games. All Joe Burrow does is cover, but usually when that happens in the NFL, you start to get a little bit of inflated lines. And since he's dealing with a lot of injuries, like the receivers aren't fully healthy, but they played at least. We'll see if Hayden Hurst plays. But on the defensive side of the ball, you just lost Sam Hubbard. Now your defensive end. We'll see if Trey Henderson plays. Their defensive end who was out last week, broken wrist. He has a chance to play, but he might not. And then they'll be down both of their starting defensive ends who are really important on that defense. And then they have injuries in the secondary as well, which is one of the reasons they just weren't statistically great last week. They have the Bills on deck. They've pretty much already clinched a playoff spot. Second straight road game here. And then, look, New England still last week, for as ugly as they look, because Mac Jones looked awful. I think Stevenson still ran for like almost 200 yards. Cincy's run defense has been a little shaky. And I think that's what this game is going to turn into because of the wins. I mean, we'll see. It's Wednesday, so things can change. But if you look at the forecast across the country,
cold.
It should be it's going to be freezing, and then it's going to be 20 to 30 mile an hour winds. In Cleveland, you're going to get 25 to 35 mile an hour sustained winds with gusts in the 40s, maybe even the 50s, which is why that total is at 31. Between the Saints and the Browns. So, yeah, low scoring game obviously makes points more at a premium. And the wind, I think, is going to hurt the Bengals more. I think they're just a tad overvalued here. So I grabbed the hook with the home dog here in desperation mode.
Is 31 the lowest total you remember?
Yeah, there was some 30. I'm trying to think. 31. There was some 30 and a halves, I think, like in the early 2000s with like some of the Bears teams that just had dominant defenses and
with Lovie
no
Smith
offense.
and Ron Rivera.
Yeah, no offense at all. Great defense. And then it would be in Chicago late in the year with wind. But this is as low as you're going to see in the NFL. It's pretty crazy.
I'd imagine that total in that Bills windstorm cold game against the Patriots finished pretty low, but 31, maybe mid-30s, 35 maybe.
Yeah, 35 and a half. Yeah, 31 is I mean, you're talking 17-14, you're already there. It's crazy.
I know. I mean, there are some games probably that are approach that in the first half total, right?
Yeah.
So, the game of the year, or, game of the year would be strong. Going into probably the last month, we've been talking about this game for a while, and now the Cowboys shit the bed a little bit. That was a pretty devastating loss that kind of changes their ability to potentially win this division, even though statistically, if Philly will lose out and they win out, they control their own destiny. But Philly's missing their quarterback, it looks like. The one thing with Dallas, their defense the last couple of weeks, man, you can just score on them, especially last week. Now, Trevor Lawrence is obviously much better than Gardner Minshew, but if one thing that I was going to like if Jalen was in this game was athleticism, being able to kind of avoid the pass rush and keep plays alive. And then their secondary, you can just kind of slice them, dice them. And A.J. Brown and Devontae are fucking monsters, and Goddard's back. Well, Minshew, it's been a little while, but I mean, isn't that kind of his game? Kind of run around, scrambling around, slinging it. Now, who knows? He hasn't played in a long time, but I think I kind of like Philly in this spot, but maybe that's just because Dallas the last couple of weeks feels a little lifeless. Now, I know they were up 27-10 in that game, but part of the reason you can come back on them because you can score. I mean, this was a team that their defense felt like the Niners, Denver, them, and they are a shell of themselves right now. So I just do not trust Dallas. I couldn't bet on them.
Yeah, I took Dallas here reluctantly, but I just kind of think knowing the Eagles coaching staff is, they're very
throw the game.
Yeah, I think that they don't care about this game. They're not going to show anything. I think Hurts could easily play, and they're saying, look, we're probably going to have to either face Dallas or San Francisco again. And one of the reasons they had so much success in the first meeting, granted they played Cooper Rush, is that Hurts's athleticism in the read option and just putting, Micah Parsons and whoever's on the edge and
stopping,
just using their aggressivism against them. Now, Minshew's not going to be able to do that, and they're going to have to run a different offense here. But I don't think they're going to play Goddard. I wouldn't be surprised if they rest other people. I just don't think that they want to get Dallas a second look at their offense. They want to stay healthy. Dallas would have to win out. I mean, look, the Eagles have home games coming up against the Saints and the Giants. And if Dallas wins out, they just have to win one of those two games. So, yeah, I think that they're punting this game. And then, it's obviously a good buy low spot on Dallas. One was lost to the Texans. Then they lose to Jacksonville. And now this is like their Super Bowl, playing the Eagles at home. You're going to get an all-out effort from Dallas at home. And then I think you're going to get almost just the lackadaisical vanilla. We're not showing anything. We're not going all out. If we're down late, I don't care. So, yeah, I'm taking a little bit of a stab here on how I think this is going to play out. So I don't see a ton of value in the number of Hurts, even if Hurts is out. But, yeah, I think like the Eagles are almost punting this in a way, which is crazy. So it's going to be the most hyped game of the weekend, and the division is technically still alive, and you can clinch the 1 seed with a win. But yeah, I don't think Hurts is playing, and I don't think maybe a couple others will. And one team's playing for their Super Bowl, and the other team's just going to say we have bigger goals to worry about, which is pretty wild. But I think that's how it's going to play out. Now I could be dead wrong, have many times before, but yeah, I think that's how it's going to play.
Well, that's what sucks. Like, the reality is, of the 2 afternoon games, the Niner-Washington game, there's more on the line, right? The Niners are chasing Minnesota. All it takes for them to slip up, and Washington's playing for their playoff lives. So that's a game where both teams are really invested. Like you said with the Eagles, like, I forget who's their last 2 games.
They play the Saints and Giants at home.
Yeah, so obviously they're incentivized to beat the Saints because they own their pick. Right.
Yep.
And with Giants, we've seen that matchup before. I mean, Jaworski could play quarterback for them, and that'd be a tough matchup for the Giants. So, yeah, I'm with you. Now, who knows? By then, they might have the number 1 seed, so they could throw that. But that's a weird spot, right? Because if you throw that game and rest everyone, you're technically taking 14 days off before you play, and then you let teams like San Francisco, Minnesota, whoever, kind of keep rolling. It's kind of a weird spot. We saw historically the Colts do it sometimes in the Peyton Manning era, right? Do you rest people when you have a bye, and then you kind of come out slow? I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but really that Saints game is basically for the 1 seed. They win that thing, it's over.
Yeah, so Sirianni, from everything that he said in the past and things that he's done in the past, he's on the health side, like just we want to stay healthy. And on the flip side, I think Shanahan came out this week and said he's on the other end of the spectrum. He says, look, it's a couple hours on every week, and if you start resting guys, then those are the guys that tend to play worse on your first playoff game and come out rusty. So it's interesting. The one argument in favor of taking the rest route is that if you do get an injury to a key player, will kill you, and it is still up in the air. But I do think that I would prefer to at least, I think just from anecdotally, I've seen teams that don't rest fare better overall. But you can make an argument for either way. But I think that's the Eagles' approach. But with the Saints pick too throws another wrench into it. So it's an interesting game theory approach by the Eagles. I'm curious to see what they do the rest of the way.
If we assume somehow the Giants, just hold, and they obviously have the lead position for the 6th seed, who would you place your money on to be the NFC 7 seed right now?
7th seed in the NFC. I mean, I'd probably, with odds, I'd probably take the Packers. I mean, if
I'm hoping that Week 18 game is the Sunday night winner get in. Jared Goff, Dan Campbell at Lambeau. The NFL that'd be a lock. The Jags game, no chance Tennessee would get that spot. And I think there's one other game, Jets, even in Miami. There was no way that Aaron Rodgers, if it's a winner get in game, would not get Sunday night, right?
Yeah, the only reason is, because look, the Lions are playing well, and it could come down to that game. But Aaron Rodgers at home, it's probably going to be like
freezing,
5 degrees, which isn't great for Goff. But the only thing is, if there's another NFC wildcard game with another team that could get in, then you have to play them at the same time. And then the game that'll probably get flexed is Ravens-Bengals, which is most likely going to be for the division. assuming the Ravens beat the Falcons and Steelers at home the next 2 weeks. But yeah, look, Washington's is at San Fran this week. They're now talking about bringing Carson Wentz back in. So you assume that's a loss. And it's going to come down to if Green Bay can take care of business in Miami this week, the NFC is going to get really interesting. But I think the NFC will be two teams that I really want to see get in. I want to see the Jags get in. And look, if Tennessee loses, I mean, they're only a 4-point favorite at home against the Texans this week now. It looks like Tannehill is going to be out. But even if they win that game, if they lose next week to Dallas and Jacksonville just goes 1-1 over the next 2 weeks, then that week 18 game is for the division, and the Jacksonville plays Houston next week. So yeah, I'd like this. I mean, the Titans just have so many injuries that and the Jags are trending up, and I'd like to see them get in, and then I'd like to see either Lions or Packers get in over Washington or the Giants. I just think that those teams could potentially give some of the higher seeds a bigger fight.
I definitely agree. Well, Stuckey, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, have a good weekend. Enjoy some booze, some family, and I will talk to you next week.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and happy holidays, and good luck on all your wagers.